Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the REPL that we'll be using. So the way that you get there is you go in here and you say repl.it, and you can see that I have an account on here. I created an account. You don't have to use an account necessarily. I can show you what it looks like without one too. You just get in here and it gives you some video suggestions for how to get started. You can select any language. I selected Python, of course, but there's also Ruby, Node, just web technologies, HTML, CSS, JS. There's some that you might not know, like Scheme or Clojure or Haskell, but it's a pretty well-stocked collection of languages here. So even if you want to just use this to play around with for your own education, I think it's a great resource. And so we're going to choose Python. And there you go, and it gave me a completely new REPL. See, it's saying growling golden disk anonymous, because I'm not in my account. And this is just a random name, and you can edit it. And to edit it, you have to become a member. But for just starting out with Python, you don't need that. And we can start out with the classic, which is hello world. Print with parentheses. That's how Python does its printing to standard output. And we'll see that we have this file here, we have this main editor here, and we have this output terminal here. So this is already inside of the Python REPL, and you'll see that it's 3.6.1, which is not the latest version, but it is a version that's new enough for us to do pretty well with it. We don't need a later version than that. So let's see what happens if we do run. And there you go, the output is right there from the line that we evaluated. And if we change this, we can go to run again. And there you go, hello world again. And so this is kind of how it works. You write something and then it evaluates it and prints the output. And so if we want, we can do print 2 plus 2. And there you go, it does 4. And then what happens if we do something like that? See, it'll give you an error immediately. It'll say you can't add an int and a string. And so if we change that now, and we say, how about if we do A plus B? There you go, it just concatenates them into one string. And that's pretty much how Python works. That's as complex as we'll really get with our coding knowledge. We'll just be calling methods and doing ifs and fors. If you want to see what an if looks like, so we can do something if 1 is greater than 0, which of course we know it is, then we do colon, then here we do print, of course. And here's another thing, we can do a shortcut. We can, instead of saying run, we can, in the case of the Mac, do command enter, or in the case of a Windows machine or Linux machine, I think it's control enter. And there you go, it evaluated again. And else looks the same. And then we say no, right, and then you can run that. And if you flip this, make this something a little less likely, it'll print that instead. And we can do something like have a E equals to 1, 2, 3, and then we can say print E, and there you go, and that's an array right there. We can have something like D, and we can say A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, and then we can print that as well. And that's what we call a dictionary. And these are all data structures, and we can print them directly without having to do any transformations. So this is some basic Python, and you can see how to use the REPL here to interact with it. And then you can create additional folders, you can create additional files. You can do something like test.txt and then put something like baz in here, and then in your main one you can do f equals to open test.txt, and then you'll see that that'll work. You don't need any additional imports. And then you do something like f.read, and you assign that to file text, this variable, and you'll see the dynamic nature of Python. We don't need to give anything types. That works. And then we can do file text, and there you go. And it saves automatically as you go. You'll see this little saved status come up here. And that's how the REPL works. And if you want, you can always go back to the main REPL list, and you can start a new REPL, and you can choose a different language. You can choose another Python REPL, and see, it'll carrying tricky deal. It's a different one. And if you sign up for an account, then it will preserve your REPLs and let you continue to develop in them without having to start from scratch each time. So that's repl.it, and that's what we'll be using heavily in the first section of the course.